Hi, welcome to the DirectLine podcast. I'm your host today, Destiny, and today I'm joined with Sean Moore, who's my old coworker from Open Door. Sean, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and where you work and just a little bit about what they do?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me. I am Sean. I'm the Community Relations Manager for Open Door Columbus. So we are an organization that supports adults with disabilities, and we were established in 1979, primarily with residential services, and then eventually branching off to adult day services, vocational habilitation, fleet of accessible transportation, independent homes all throughout Franklin County and a little beyond. In addition to that, we have representation in Union County with a partnership with the Tier 1 Honda plant there. We're supporting employees with disabilities on the front line, working to create those new car packages that you find every time you purchase a new Honda. We have remote support services, which is probably our newest endeavor. We're just kind of up in the ante in terms of promoting independence on a residential setting. So much more, which I'm sure we'll get into, but that's like that's the Cliff's Notes of what we do here.
Yeah, awesome. And Sean, why don't you tell me, how did you get involved with Open Door, kind of your background with that?
Yeah, so my mother, now retired, is an LISW, so she is a social worker from way back. Her first internship actually was at Franklin County's original state hospital on West Broad Street. It no longer exists, but so she was kind of thrown into this industry at a time when this industry was really going through a large scale shift. It was early 80s for her. So she kind of, as a student, saw sort of before deinstitutionalization and post deinstitutionalization when she actually entered the workforce. So in 84, which is when Open Door, formerly Columbus Center for Human Services, opened their first entity, which was our intermediate care facility, Park West Court Apartments. My mom was one of the original team members, and was actually with that core group that selected the original residents at the ICF from a neighboring institutionalized space. She served as a social worker there, and I think was there for 2 to 3 years. But, you know, I was born in 87, so she remained connected to this place. I'm guessing it was probably her first kind of real adult job, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, she was here pretty much right out of grad school. So she remained connected to many of the staff members that she worked with initially. I was kind of born into this industry. I was here for all of the family events. I did the Easter egg hunts as a little tyke. I ran around the ICF collecting eggs and interacted with the original residents. I would say kind of like preteens, so probably like 10, 11. I started coming to the ICF weekly. Wednesdays was my night. I ran bingo and worked directly with those that we were supporting here. Eventually, you know, I kind of switched up volunteer activities, going on to different providers, usually kind of following where my mom was working at the time, but always with a kind of strong emphasis on human services, and really kind of supporting persons with disabilities. So it sort of just became second nature. I ended up getting my degree from OSU, fine arts photography. And after graduation, accepted a position at our art studio and gallery in Grandview Heights. So I was there for 10 years, eventually becoming the program gallery director there. And it really was just kind of this really perfect mold of two worlds of mine that were combining, this world of kind of human services and this world of fine arts kind of coexisting in one singular space. And then 3 years ago, I moved over to the corporate end, handling all promotions, all partnerships, grant writing, marketing, public relations, all of that kind of fun behind the scenes stuff that's still creative and still supportive, but less direct on the front line, probably.
Yeah, Sean, I love that because your background is so unique in a way where you were raised in this world, in this IDD world, which, you know, we say we would love for this all to be like a normalized way of living. Just seeing people who are different from you and it being just a really accepted thing you don't question even as a kid. So that's really cool that you were, yeah, just kind of literally born into that.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Quite
that you've
literally.
and that you've pursued it as a career and you've stuck with it for, I mean, your whole life. That's really, really
Yeah,
cool.
definitely.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about the art studio for a minute, because, and we can get into this, but DSPU has interns that participate at the art studio. So we
Hmm.
can talk about that just a little bit, and you can kind of talk about like what the art studio does in a little more depth. And then we
Yeah,
can talk about
definitely.
how me and you crossed paths.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
Um, so my first experience with DSPU was through the art studio. It was the director prior to me. She sort of took the DSPU students kind of under her wing, and I think that was fairly early in kind of the programmatic structure of DSPU. So she was really kind of introducing them to all facets of our organization. So we didn't spend, the entirety of their time with Open Door with the students at the studio, but they definitely did pop in, and she was super cool. She found a way to really utilize creativity in every capacity, whether it was like in a residential setting, in the studio space itself, at other programs. So she always kind of had that lens, which I think the students really appreciated. They saw a way to support people through the arts, directly and indirectly. So her perspective was always very cool. The studio itself, so it was born at our intermediate care facility. The original director, Courtney, who I volunteered with when I was like 10 or 11, she was a graduate of the Columbus College of Art and Design. She saw a huge need for art space programming, really for all, but specifically for the population of people that she was working directly with. She was on the programmatic end anyway, so she ended up starting this kind of like makeshift art gallery on the ICF grounds. The original artists were all residents of the ICF, and she just kept getting more and more interest, and space was kind of closing in. It was, like she was growing out of her makeshift program. So she applied for a grant from the Greater Columbus Arts Council, won that grant, and those funds were used as starting funds to open the initial studio space in downtown Grandview. Within 2 years, they outgrew that space and moved to what we now know as the Studio and Gallery in still in Grandview, but on Goodale. And they now have over 100 artists that they represent, daily fine arts programming that is very much individual specific and also self-directed. The staff are working artists and are there for kind of technical know-how, skill-based teaching, but they would never want to compromise the artistic voice of any of the artists they represent. They have 7 to 9 in-house exhibitions annually, and usually about 30 every year in various venues throughout Franklin County. It is known as a vocational program because there is opportunity for earned income. So every single artist there earns from artwork sold, while they're also kind of building their portfolios, their CVVs, their resumes. They're really kind of gaining all of the tools that an artist needs to market themselves as a working professional artist. So it's a super great space, full of fun, full of great energy, full of fine arts. Really, any medium you can think of is represented there and is available to the artist free of charge. So very, very cool space.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that space is really cool for anyone who's in the central Ohio area. It's definitely worth checking out.
Yeah,
Like
hit it
Sean
up.
said, it's on Goodale. And yeah, just a really cool way for the community to get involved with, again, that space, that world. And the art is beautiful, phenomenal. Some of the best art I've seen in, well, my life.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
awesome. Awesome. Yeah, Sean, so with the DSPU program and with the art studio, um, can you talk like just really, really quick, kind of what were the students doing with the participants at the art studio?
Yeah, at the art studio, so we represent kind of. We always said the only requirement to become a represented artist is to have an interest in art. But there's no kind of formal portfolio review, nothing like that. So with that kind of comes a general interest, but not necessarily a fully built out understanding of how to utilize mediums, a fully built out understanding of the skill sets required. And, it's kind of the full gamut in terms of ability level. So the students were kind of working one-on-one with artists at the studio space, helping them sort of explore their own creative endeavors, helping them find their creative voice, finding supplies that would assist through the process of creation, introducing them to new supplies, and then having conversations with them about, what they were creating, why they were creating it, kind of building those tools of communication in addition to creation. I
Yeah.
would say like 50% of being an artist is actually being able to talk about how you make art and why you make art. It's those personal connections that really promote the sale, and ultimately, as a working artist, your goal is to sell your work. You want people to connect with it. That's a huge bonus.
Yeah.
But if this is kind of what's putting food on your table, you need to know how to market yourself. You need to know how to talk about yourself. You need to know how to talk about your artwork. So the students were amazing in that capacity. I think one of them actually ended up becoming a permanent staff member here at our intermediate care facility. So it led to a real place of employment for that student. And I think she's kind of moved on to higher education now, potentially kind of in the medical field. So it really did kind of open the door for her specifically. But from that kind of studio front, they were really kind of working directly with the artists, in a more programmatic realm, I would say, than in a direct care realm. But that also is the role of a DSP.
Yeah.
You are kind of balancing all of the worlds. You're sort of spinning all the plates and wearing all of the hats, to enrich someone's life. So
Absolutely. Yeah, and again, with all of those conversations comes just natural like relationship building too, where
connection,
I've
yeah,
seen it, with my own eyes. Yeah, the connections that the interns and the staff who are working there as well.
of course,
But
yeah,
the relationships people make with the individuals who we work with, it's incredible, and you really do learn to like you fall in love with people.
for
So
sure. And
yeah,
and kind of like we were talking earlier, it then becomes normalcy. I always say there it never hurts to be more aware of other people, more
yeah,
aware of other lifestyles, more aware of other upbringings, more aware of just people in general. Awareness hopefully leads to understanding, and understanding hopefully leads to acceptance, and with acceptance comes care and love, and then we really truly build communities. So why would anyone not want to be more aware or more caring or
absolutely,
more accepting?
absolutely.
It's never a
Yeah.
bad skill set to have.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and yeah, all of those getting to know you and how people how they live their lives, but with the art studio too, it's cool because that gives you an extra opportunity to see like how do you view the world and how do these things make you feel. So, yeah, here
Yeah,
at
it's
Lighthouse
almost
Cove,
like
we
an
love having
added
you guys as
language.
an internship site because yeah, kind of naturally gives those opportunities to really reflect on like self-expression, which for all of us is super important.
Yeah, well, and art is a form of communication. I would say art is our history. That's how we
Yeah.
know what's happened in the past. That's how we honor what's happened in the past. It's how we communicate with one another. Just like you and I are talking now, there are artists who are nonverbal at the studio space, and their form of communication is what they create. That is how they are telling you what their background is. That's how they're telling you what they want. That's how they're telling you what they dream. It's its own form of communication. So
Yeah. Yeah. So Sean, let's talk just for a second. How did you and I cross paths? I'll let you kind of tell that story. Because like Sean said, he works at Open Door. Before I joined this team, I used to work at Open Door. I was also at the ICF working in that recreational space. Um, so we had a cool opportunity. And Sean, I'll let you kind of explain just how we crossed paths there.
yeah, so when I transitioned over to the corporate office, it was kind of in the world of marketing communications, but it was very much to sort of grow partnerships and really kind of get the word out about who we are, and to find like-minded spaces and people and organizations that would help us carry our mission through while we're helping them carry their mission through. Obviously, Lighthouse Cove was already under our belt in terms of a strong partnership, and I took over kind of the overarching supervision of the DSP-U program, along with that kind of other partnerships and volunteer endeavors. But So kind of initially, the first year in maintaining that, I had our DSP-U students placed with Open Door Stage and Screen, which is our theater program for actors with disabilities. Very similar in structure to the studio space. Excuse me, but it's performative arts rather than fine arts, and I think that that is such an enriching space. Again, as we talked about fine arts being kind of modes of communication, the theatrical arts are in and of themselves their
Yeah,
own mode of communication.
absolutely.
Um, and I sort of served as the kind of supplemental policy procedure. Um, you know, this is what this policy means in real life, in real time. This is how the rules and regulations structure how you work as a direct support professional. And then the on the job hands-on experience really was covered by stage and screen. I was more concept, they were more practice.
Yeah.
The thing that we kind of found in that kind of day program setting and existing solely in that day program setting, those kind of moments of direct care that exist in a residential setting are not always available, especially with a program like Stage and Screen that has, you know, a core group of people who have the capability to lead very independent lives.
Hmm.
So my second year with DSPU, it was recommended by our executive director that you, Destiny, kind of serve as the on the job, on site kind of liaison for the DSPU students because you were working in a programmatic realm, but in a residential space. So there was more opportunity for those experiences for hands-on development to be present, that were maybe lost in the day programming kind of structure. You as a human also just, you know, we knew that you would exhibit patience and you would be welcoming and you would make the day fun and light and bright and but realistic, obviously. I mean, we don't want to paint a picture of a workforce that is untrue. You know, the realities of where we work are the realities of where we work, but we knew that you would take those realities in stride. You would provide the students with a safe learning environment, an inclusive learning environment, as well as some like fun recreational time that, you know, you can teach a lesson in direct care in a recreational setting in a way that is fun and engaging and builds connection. So that's kind of how you and I became familiar with DSPU together, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was so excited whenever you approached me with the opportunity because I historically in other jobs I've worked with a lot of younger people, high school age students, high school age employees. So I was just excited to have some younger staff around me. I've
Yeah,
always enjoyed that. So
young
yeah,
energy never
it was
hurts.
great. And yeah, kind of like you were saying, Sean, like we had just a bit more like a bit more of those like direct care elements in the ICF. So
Yeah,
for anyone listening, in an intermediate care facility, if you don't know what that is, it's essentially just a residential campus area where there are homes, typically like apartments, where people live on a campus of some sort, and there's other facilities on grounds. They'll typically eat food in their homes. They'll cook in, a home kitchen, eat in their home. So there's not like a dining hall, but most places do have like a recreational facility. So that's where I was in the rec room. And there's other types of like therapies and nurses available and medical assistants and things like that. So
yeah,
there's
it's
24-hour, 7 days a week, not programming 24 hours a week, but there's always someone there. There's always things to do. And those people live there. It's their home.
it's
So
it's definitely the perfect environment for the perfect person. We always kind of view them as transitional spaces just because the ability for full independence is not necessarily apparent there because there is round the clock staffing, but it is a great space for someone who has a lot of medical fragility and
yes.
needs time and assistance to build medical strength. It is an amazing space for someone who maybe displays adverse behaviors and needs a team round the clock to work with them to identify new coping strategies and new ways to express themselves, before they can kind of transition out into a more independent setting with the tools that they have built at the ICF. And it's also just a perfect space for emergency respite. If someone just needs like emergency care right now, and there's an available bed, and ICF is a great location. So
Yeah. Yeah, and that was something that the DSPU students were able to learn about because, like you said, typically we did have like, those people who reside there, for sometimes a couple of years on end or just due to what their goals or what their needs might be.
right,
But we did have a lot of like respite people who might come through and they might only live there for a week or two. So it
right,
was
yeah,
really important. And we would talk with our DSPU students about, it's important to make those people feel so included and so welcomed and wanted while they're
right,
there. And with the other duties that me and my coworkers who were employed there that we had, those DSPU students were really, really so helpful and intentional with, the relationships that they made with those people, so that we were able to continue programming, on like a 6-week basis, for
yeah,
like a goal that we were working towards in the rec program. So
yeah.
awesome. Yeah, I think that was really, really great. Okay, Sean, do you have any like really fun memories just with any of the DSPU students?
Oh my gosh. So the group, my first group is the group that I worked most directly with. And it was always fun to sort of hear the structure of schooling and how different it is, but then also how similar it is. I mean, at that point I was 36, 37. So I'm like, oh gosh, you guys are still reading that. There was one gentleman, he was very reserved, but very sweet, very much wanted to be an artist and would talk to me about his goals of eventually um, becoming a tattoo artist. So we sort of used that, we translated that into his role with stage and screen and had him kind of working to design sets with some of the actors and then actually paint the sets. And it was very cool to sort of see sort of how an interest can be translated into the role of a direct support professional. It's I always say, like, if you don't love what you're doing, everyone you're working with is going to know. So, like, and if you can come from a place of interest and a place of, hey, I love this and you love this, why don't we do this together? And we can achieve something great by learning from one another. And that was kind of the truest form of that, like this person who really didn't know a whole lot about the IDD field. He had never really had a lot of experience with persons with disabilities. What he did know is that he wanted to be a tattoo artist and that he loved illustration and he loved art. And prior to working with us, may have not known that you can be an artist and love art and also work in this field. You can also use art as an avenue to form a bond with someone who you are supporting, who may be a person with disabilities. So
Yeah.
it was kind of a full picture moment that was very, very cool to watch.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a cool point too. Because kind of like going back to your background, you were naturally just in this world. But so many people, including myself, we always say that we stumbled into this field. And for a lot of people, it's a world of, working. It's a world that they don't know about.
Right.
But
Yeah.
or even ignoring it, that they just don't know. So that's a really cool point, to how art, you can love art and make that can be your goal, to love that and make that in life, make that your career. But there's really cool connections and ways that you can integrate those jobs, and there are so many job opportunities that you might not know about, like at a place like Open Door or with another organization. Because we always talk about, there are those corporate um responsibilities, but again, like someone like me, my background, I have a degree in recreation management. So I've for years was working outside, doing youth programs, working at camps, things like that. And then when I found out that these two things can overlap so well, I was so surprised and a little like, oh, I wish someone told me about this sooner because I would have been doing it this whole time.
Well, and
um,
I think there are those moments of overlapping. Just, I mean, we see them every single day. There's a DSP who has an interest in X, Y, and Z, and then goes to a program
yeah.
head and is like, hey, I have an interest in this. What if I started a group? Do you know anyone that we support who also has an interest in this or may have an interest in this? And I mean, that's how magic happens. That's how we have a community garden outside. We had
Yeah.
one staff member who was interested in a gardening program. She developed it herself. And, at her 10 years, there were easily 25 to 30 different people who she was working with daily to support this garden as she was helping them build skills and build, not just skills in terms of gardening, but in terms of, what happens when we have a plant sale, who can run the station where people are bringing up plants and they can process the sales, who can work with marketing to get the word out, who's going to greet the people when they come, so many different skills are encapsulated in just one seed of interest. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And again, just how it's so interesting how we can kind of in this field do like our specific interests and passions. Because I know again, like I really love being outside, and I had so many opportunities where I was able to go explore new places that I didn't really have, access to
right.
Monday through Friday. Like it was built into my job as a DSP, and it was so cool. And so much of this job of being a DSP specifically is again just helping people be independent. And people are gonna be pretty independent if they're doing what they love. Um,
Right. Right.
so yeah, I had times when I was running music clubs and doing an anime club. I had times when we were all we had a group of people who were looking into they like dating, and our DSPU students, like we were looking into, what do you wear on a date? How do you get flowers for a lady? Any of those types of things, know your worth, girl.
Yeah, right.
So just like really cool, like life building moments where, it's just like, this is what I do with my friends too.
Yeah,
So it's really cool how being a DSP and working in this type of environment, yeah, it gives you those opportunities.
most certainly. Yeah.
Okay, Sean, so what would you say, first to a student who's maybe interested in doing the DSPU program at their school, but to build off of that, what would you say just to anyone who's maybe thinking about being a DSP?
I it's interesting because it really was sort of just always there for me. So there was never even like a moment of like consideration, like, is this normal? Is this a career path? Like it just is.
Yeah,
Um, we talked a lot about awareness and just kind of being aware of other people. And I don't think that it ever hurts to put yourself in a position where you are working with people who are different from you. It happens every day. For some reason, there's a stigma about that difference being ability.
yeah,
Like you and I
yeah,
work together. You and I are different people. I'm sure, have different um, thoughts, just as humans do, different processes, different ways of achieving something. We work together super well. So I don't ever think that, putting yourself in a position where you are working with someone who is different than you is a bad thing. I think that in the kind of world of understanding what direct support is, there isn't a lot of knowledge because we don't really talk about it. We're not
yeah,
actively talking about the roles that these people fill for the roles that or for the people that we support. So I think that, having more conversations about what that role is and what it can be, because there are stigmas about, a direct support professional. Well,
yeah,
I'm only going to be doing direct care. That doesn't feel enriching. It doesn't match any of my interests, especially when you're like, you know, mid teens. You're like,
sure,
I
yeah,
mean, when I was 14, I wanted to be an actor in Hollywood, like, so, but at that time, no one was like, oh, you know what you could do in the meantime? You could work at a theater program for actors with disabilities,
right,
and you could build skills, you could gain confidence, you could work with a population of people that are underrepresented and really kind of help them build their voice. So I think, my biggest advice to someone who is considering entering the DSPU program or someone who is considering taking a job as a direct support professional is to not think that those jobs or those roles are outside of you because this is your set interest. I think understand that you can take that set interest and translate it into becoming a direct support professional, and it probably will have a more beautiful result than anyone who is just signing up for a job to get a paycheck. Like really take your
Yeah.
hopes, dreams, goals and build those hopes, dreams, goals with someone else who you're supporting who maybe shares those hopes, dreams, goals, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think beautifully said. Yeah, like I said before, I wish I knew about some of these opportunities when I was younger. Um, and
Yes,
just
we
in
need more
general, like,
conversations.
yeah, totally. Yeah. So I'm glad we're talking here
Yeah.
today. I hope more I love having the younger people, we're both young, but the younger generations talk about, and even stuff just like disability history. Um,
Yeah.
for those who don't know, I would just take some time in your day, Google disability history in the United States. There's some pretty amazing stories, but also we have a long way to go. So there's a lot of opportunity for growth and um, love and joy and sharing relationships with people in this field and in this world. If you don't already have a link, DSPU or being a DSP is an awesome way to do that. So, okay. Well, Sean, I think on that note, we'll finish our conversation. To our listeners, if you guys liked what you heard today, make sure that you would like and subscribe and you follow Lighthouse Cove and our DirectLine podcast. We do this every week. Sean, thank you again so much for joining me. This was my first podcast with a guest, so I really appreciate it. And it's always good to talk to you. So,
Of course, anytime. Thank you, Lighthouse Cove and Destiny, for all you guys do.
yes, thank you. Bye.
Okay. Bye.
With the launch of Lighthouse Cove, our work continues with the growing and renewed direction of our podcast, The Direct Line. With conversations, stories, and on-location interviews, The Direct Line supports the mission of Lighthouse Cove to educate, elevate, and empower professionals across the IDD field. Tune in to the Direct Line podcast, brought to you by Lighthouse Cove every Thursday on YouTube and all other podcast platforms. Lighthouse Cove, it's more than a name. It's who we are.